not his. Please, please do not be harsh when reading this. I love my husband and we have been together since we were 17. We've been married for 4 years now. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I've never stopped loving him. A couple years ago he had an emotional affair with some woman he worked with. I was a good wife and I took him back, but I don't think I ever forgave him. We haven't been super happy for the last 2 years or so. My husband has been sort of detached and become a workaholic. I've been lonely and I made a couple mistakes. Last December we decided to try to have a baby and I went off the pill. We've been trying to conceive without much luck. In March I went to see meet up with some old friends for a weekend. I made a terrible mistake and I had a few too many drinks and I ended up in bed with one of my friends. We slept together 6 times that weekend. I came home and I realized how big of a mistake I made and I'm trying to make amends. 2 weeks ago, I found out that I was pregnant. I'm 6 weeks right now, which is right around the time I cheated. I'm so scared. I'm pretty sure it's not my hubby's. We tried for months without any luck and sure enough the one time I stray I end up pregnant. I don't know what to do. There is a chance it could be my husband's. I slept with him right after I got back from the trip. We really want the baby and he wouldn't understand me getting an abortion. I don't want to confess and I don't want to abort my baby. We just bought a house and we both so badly want a child. I don't want my mistake to ruin our lives. I just need some advice and guidance on what to do. Comments: you need to tell him the truth. There are too many genetic variables at work here. Like if both you and your husband have blue eyes and you give birth to a brown-eyed baby. That would be impossible if the child were his. Also, blood type can prove that he is not the parent. He may be physically incapable of fathering a child. What if years down the road a doctor finds something and tells him he cannot be a father? Truth is best all around at this point. Think for a minute. If you don't tell him, you will spend the next 20 years looking at your child and husband and aching in pain for how you brought this child into the world. Do you really want to do this to yourself? To your husband? What if some medical tests are needed or your baby needs blood and you have to stop your husband from being the donor? Point is, this stuff always comes out one way or another. Also, why wouldn't you give this other man the right to know he has a child? I sure would want to know. OP responds, he won't stay if it's not his. I feel so guilty, but I think telling him would break his heart and cause him more pain. My friend looks quite a bit like my husband. I don't think he would know. I just feel horrible about this. It's my luck that the one time I make a mistake this would happen. I have been a perfect wife aside from this. I forgave him for his. I know he won't forgive me for mine. My friend is married also and he has 2 kids. I don't think he would want to know. I know my husband and he wouldn't stay if he knew it wasn't his. I don't want to lose him. I would spend the rest of my life making it up to him. I don't think he necessarily has to know. My husband trusts me and he wouldn't have any doubts. I messed up, but I don't want to ruin my baby's life over this. She deserves to have a dad who loves them. My husband would. If he knew it wasn't his, it wouldn't be the same. There is also a small chance it is my husband's. I'm 6 weeks along, not 6 months. I know I'm a horrible person. I just want to do what's best for the baby and I don't want to hurt my husband. My husband does want a baby. My friend already has a family and would want nothing to do with the baby. I know I should tell him, but it would mean the end of my marriage and no daddy for my child. I still think there is a chance it could be my husband, so maybe I should wait and see. We had slept together before and after the weekend. I've been praying every day since I found out that it is my husband's, but I know it's probably not. This is the only time in my life I have ever cheated. Comments: no. Again, stop being selfish. Wait and see. Again, no. Damn it, women, get this through your head. Your husband deserves the truth now before he begins developing attachment to a child, unborn or not, which is likely not his. Stop justifying this by not wanting to hurt him. The truth is, if you cared about that, you'd have not slept with this guy 6 times. You simply do not want to come out about this and hope it is your husband's, at the expense of your husband's emotional needs. In order to save your marriage for you, stop telling us and yourself that you're doing it to save him from hurt. And best for the baby is the baby as it grows actually knowing who its father is. Stop with the protecting of others as an excuse to try to make this work for you. I think most of us can understand a single, drunken mistake. Had there been no other consequences to your husband and a child, you were genuinely remorseful and fully believed it could never happen again and you learned your lesson. Well then maybe you could justify keeping this secret to yourself forever and not hurting someone else. That is assuming you would never do such a thing again, which it sounds like you believe you would not do. But 6 times is not a single drunken mistake. You had a full-blown, fully conscious affair, no matter the duration or time span. And this affair can have deep effects and implications on 2 other innocent people. You messed up. Admit to it. Maybe if you throw yourself at the mercy of the court, you'll be granted leniency. But deny, deceive and hide despite the impact on others and continue to show no true remorse. In other words, how can I get out of this? If you were mine and I found out, there would be no chance of reconciliation. A one-time mistake and error in judgment. Maybe even probably. Maybe I could get past that. And if I couldn't, at least I'd respect you for having some backbone and integrity. which might be important if by some long shot I was the father or your child. OP responds, I'm sort of scared to jump back in and say anything since everyone seems to have this awful impression of me. I couldn't tell my husband. I just couldn't. He would never forgive me. I think it might be best for everyone for me to have an abortion. I just need to build up the courage to do it. I'm a good person who made one mistake. Try to be understanding. I'm going to talk to my friend and see what his opinion is of this first, and if he doesn't want the baby, I'll get an abortion. I'm pretty sure he doesn't want any part of the baby, so. Anyways, thanks for pushing me to get the abortion. I think it is the only choice, really. Love TV's comment. I really think OP needs to tell her husband, no matter what the result is. It is the better choice. I'm not going to judge OP because this is a lot to deal with, but she needs to talk to a professional. Story 2. Honor it. My wife and I have been married for 6 years. When we met, she was honest, hardworking, but above all, she was wholesome. You know, guys, a kind of girl who radiates that innocence that makes you think she'd never do anything to ever hurt you. However, she eventually slipped into a depression that she couldn't shake. This, plus the fact that she'd been lying to me compulsively for the last 6 years, is what might do us in. We're both teachers. Actually, I still am, she's not. Read on to find out why, in a very rough school district. So needless to say, work was a major stressor on both of us. Being a guy, I had a much easier time getting kids in line, but she had a very rough time dealing with our clientele. She'd come home distraught and exhausted. Everyone I work with does. But it really took its toll on her. She hated her job and despised getting up every morning. I encouraged and helped her as best I could. Little did I know, this job was eating away at her little by little. On top of the rotten kids, some administrators, for political reasons I won't go into, decided to pick on her. Our last principal was a total sadist. He belittled her teaching, and when she started crying in his office, he sent her on a mandatory psychological exam to see if she was fit to teach. That completely devastated her. She was a really great teacher and most kids loved her. This kind of thing happened to literally dozens of teachers at my district. So it wasn't just her. That wasn't much comfort though. Her confidence was totally shot after that. Now to be a teacher in my state, you have to get a master's degree within 4 years of getting hired. She began hers, but never finished. She lied to me for months, telling me it was done and all she had to do was meet with her thesis advisor, and that was that. Just before the beginning of the 5th year, she told me that she's resigning from teaching because she didn't finish her thesis. Well, there's big lie number 1. After my initial shock, I agreed it was best for her and told her I totally forgave her for lying to me. At this point, she started seeing a therapist. She went through 4 of them, started and quit antidepressants, and finally settled on one that she felt she was making good progress with. She is still seeing this same therapist today, after trying unsuccessfully to get tutoring jobs that don't require certification. She finally settled on being a dispatcher for a small fuel company, only 2 minutes from where we used to work. Incidentally, we looked at our finances and figured that we'd just squeak by and be able to keep our house. We both agreed that the office job would be an okay temporary position until she finished her thesis and could get back in the classroom. All was well for about a year, until the eviction notice came. We called a lawyer, and my wife insisted that she take the lead in the situation. Like a damned fool, I trusted her. 2 weeks later, she said the lawyer called the mortgage company and it was all a big misunderstanding. Slowly, ever since resigning from teaching, I noticed her getting more and more distant. I asked her literally hundreds of times, babe, what's wrong? And the inevitable reply was, oh, nothing, I'm just tired. That's not to say we didn't have good times, they were just getting fewer and farther between. Add to that the fact that our physical life was almost non-existent, and you have a husband wondering if his wife is sneaking around. Mind you, I had no evidence at all. She actually said on many occasions she hates cheaters, and her boss was a degenerate pot-smoking troll. So I just chalked it up to paranoia. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. Finally, one night she called after working late saying she was coming home. She said she was going to stop off at McDonald's to grab some food and she'd be right home. It took her almost 2 hours to get back from a trip that should have taken about 40 minutes. When she came in, I was upset, asking where she was. She got counter upset, saying the line was huge and there was traffic. I told her I wanted to see the receipt so I could check the time, which led her to storm upstairs. I didn't speak to her for the whole next day. I'm sorry to say that's one of my many faults. I do the silent treatment routine when I feel I've been wronged, even though she was almost certainly telling me the truth about why she was late. I still had that pall of paranoia around me that she'd been with someone. That Friday, I planned a make-up date, good old movies and dinner, which we both love more than anything. I called her at work asking what she wanted to see, and she said casually that she was going upstate to see her friend. The friend in question, mind you, is an absolute idiot who hasn't been in a meaningful relationship for more than 2 hours. They got into fights all the time, and when they did, my wife would tell me all the crappy things she'd say about me. For example, there were a few times when my wife would make dinner and I just wouldn't wake up from a nap. My wife got angry that I did this occasionally, and she told me her friend said we should get a divorce. It was actually something we'd joke about. As for her impromptu trip, I was taken aback, but agreed, not wanting to make her angrier. She spent the entire weekend there, and didn't come back Sunday. I texted her at 2 a.m. on Sunday night asking where she was. She said she was tired on the way home and decided to sleep at her parents'. That Monday, she called me and said she thinks we should spend some time apart. She finally revealed, that she wasn't happy for a long time. I was as shocked as I was devastated. I had no idea she'd been so unhappy with our marriage, but I reluctantly agreed. Well, the decision to split was made much easier by the fact that the eviction I thought was taken care of months before hadn't been at all. Here comes big lie number 2. I came to find out she hadn't been paying our mortgage for almost a year. Yes, I know I'm an idiot for trusting her to handle it, but what was done was done. After an angry, tearful exchange, I forgave her again, and we sobbed in each other's arms. The move turned out to be easy, as I just moved a few feet next door to my neighbor's apartment, and she moved back home. We both parted with the agreement that we'd work on ourselves and our marriage, but we both swore that we'd make a commitment to get back on track. The split was last February. Since March, we slowly reconnected and became romantic. Bonding still wasn't as frequent as I would have liked, but still, I thought we were going in the right direction. For a good 9 months, it seemed like we were back to our old selves. We exchanged "I loved you" all the time, started going to a gym, dates every weekend with her spending the nights at my place. Which brings us to this Christmas. We had a really great holiday. We did all our traditional things, with me going to her parents' house for the eve and my parents' house the day. We had a fantastic time, and there was absolutely no evidence whatsoever that things were going south. Again, sorry for being so damned long-winded. Almost done. That brings us to this Wednesday. We were supposed to go to a party at a friend's house, and when the day came, I called her at work to see if she'd meet me there or if she wanted to come to my place first. She said, "Oh, today is Wednesday." I thought it was Thursday. Immediately I got a twinge of panic. She works as a dispatcher for oil deliveries. She has to know what day it is. On top of that, her brother's B-Day dinner was that Thursday. So she couldn't have had it in her head that she was both going to the party and her brother's B-Day. She would have just said she couldn't go when we got the invite. This is where the crap hits the fan. I say I'm sick of the lies and ask her to please tell me the truth. Let me say that since our separation, she'd said many times she wants to move back in. We'd even started looking at places on the internet. However, recently, she suggested that we maybe wait 6 months because she doesn't want to move out in the winter. At the time it seemed reasonable, but now, after catching her in this lie, it seemed that her suggestion to postpone moving in was just a ploy to buy more time in the separation. That, coupled with the newest lie I caught her in, made me press her for answers. She eventually admitted she loves me, but she's not in love with me. She said that she was afraid to move back in because things might just go back to the way they were. Big lie number 3, how is it? How can it possibly be that for 10 months, after thousands of "I love you" and romantic moments, she says this? I started to do exactly what I shouldn't at that point. I begged and pleaded, asked her what her life would be like without us, etc. I brought up counseling and she said, "Well, you could go." I was beside myself. We eventually agreed to continue talking the next day. It was late and she had work in the morning. She promised she'd call after she got home. She never did. I texted her, asking what was wrong. Nothing. Then I broke down and called. We talked a little more and agreed to meet after she got off work the next day, New Year's Eve. I spent the whole rest of that night writing her a sonnet. Yay, I said, a ducking sonnet. They're damned hard to write. That I was literally crying over after writing the last line. I sent her the sonnet with some flowers to her work. I thought, foolishly, in retrospect, that this gesture might soften things up for our meeting. I'll give you one guess what happened. She didn't call. She texted later on saying she had to go to her parents' house for dinner with her cousin and her husband. At that point I'd had enough. I drove to her house, gave her back the ring and said goodbye to her parents. All of them seemed stunned, including her cousin and her husband. The next day I went to the bank and opened a separate checking account and moved some money over. Then I did another probably dumb thing. I went into her emails. She'd given me the PW a few weeks before to check an email for her. I found a folder entitled Friends, and in it were several letters to the idiot friend of hers she'd visited that fateful weekend. These things go back to Jan 2017, 6 months into our marriage. In it, she detailed her unhappiness with her job, her depression, and her problems with me. I guess I should say now there were times when I could have been more attentive, less video games, that sort of thing. But she said in this letter, again 6 months into our marriage, that she didn't like married life and she was worried about herself. She said in several places throughout these letters that she loved me with all her heart, but that getting married might have been a mistake and that she misses home. I should note that she and her mom have a very, dare I say somewhat freakishly, close relationship. Even though I married a very hardworking, independent girl, She was really coddled by her parents. In many ways, I think emotionally she's still very much a girl. She had this idealized fantasy of marriage, and when it didn't go according to plan, she just wanted out. She even mentioned in her letters that our wedding day was fading in her mind and it killed her. Which seems to me that marriage was all about the day of it and not the rest of it. In the emails, she also chalked up her unwillingness to finish her master's to her depression. If I can armchair psychologize for a second, I believe it was just a subconscious way of not having to go back to a job she hated. Completely understandable. She also said that the depression left her crippled when it came to our finances. I have to admit I'm terrible with money, whereas she was a bill-juggling genius when I first met her. She had a great credit and was good at budgeting. I should have been more involved than I was with the financial side of things, but again, I trusted her. She also said in one email bonding was a chore, and she was running out of ways to deny my advances. That one cut me really ducking deep. Again, I had literally no idea things been that bad so early on. We had our ups and downs, but overall, the first years of our marriage were great. All a testament to how deceitful people can be, I suppose. She never told me a thing about how she was really feeling. Oh, nothing. I'm tired. Remember, we laughed and had many, many good times in the years right up until she couldn't hide her depression anymore. Well, I told her 2 days ago that I read those emails. I justified it by saying I had literally nothing to go on, and I needed answers. Understandably, she got rather mad, saying she doesn't even remember writing them or what was in them. I calmly suggested she read them again. She said she was basically hung up on me, sobbing. Immediately after that convo, I sent her an email apologizing again, stressing the fact that I'd never, ever in a million years consider doing that unless I was desperate for answers. There was nothing in there that suggested an affair. But whatever, not proof it didn't happen, but it was somewhat reassuring. I finished the email by saying, again, perhaps foolishly, that I was still in love with her. And that I wished to God she'd told me all those things instead of her friend. A friend, incidentally, she stopped talking to months ago because she finally realized she was a crazy, self-absorbed bee who was never really a friend to her at all. Shortly after that, I got text from her saying she was sorry for getting angry at me, and that she understood why I did what I did. She promised to call me and write me a letter which, finally, explained her feelings. It's been almost 24 hours since that text. I'm firmly resolved not to contact her until, or unless, she makes the first move. I feel strongly there's still something there. One of her emails was to a Pit Bull Rescue Foundation, a dog we both love, and she wanted to know if she could get one before Christmas so she could surprise me. That was only a few weeks ago. How does someone resolve to get their spouse a dog and then only weeks later tell them they're out of love with them when nothing ever happened to cause it? Despite the nearly 6 years of lies, I still would do anything to have her back. I know that our problems are entirely fixable, but our marriage was like a car we had the keys to, but neither knew how to drive. After what she did to me, my family and friends would trash me if I went back. But hey, I made a vow, and I intend to do whatever it takes to honor it, even if she hasn't. Comments. First of all, depression is a real thing, as I am sure you know. It changes people significantly and makes them think and do things that they wouldn't normally do. Your wife definitely is dealing with some depression. I hope she is getting help for that. In working on the marriage, you need to find a balance. You should not completely smother her with texts, voicemails, etc. She needs some space. You should also not completely ignore her, as you have made vows, which you are courageously keeping. When she commits to doing something, like writing her a letter, graciously ask when she thinks she might complete that task and then allow her the time to do so. When she doesn't complete the task on time, then you can contact her. Otherwise, trust her to complete what she said she would do. I know you have no reason to trust her given the history, but that is something she still needs. OP responds, my therapist said she might have given me the I love you but not in love with you line because she just couldn't handle the relationship anymore. Like, she lied. Again, but all her lies are set out of desperation, defense, because she's too emotionally damaged, ill-equipped to deal with facing or admitting the truth. She also said that line is basically BS, and I agree. When people say that, it means A, they don't love you anymore and are afraid to say it, or B, they still love you, but don't want to be committed to you anymore. I'm tending toward B as it relates to my situation, because all signs pointed to us doing really well before I caught her in that lie and pressed for the truth. She loves me but is afraid to that moving back and would lead to the same outcome as before. Her need to please me versus protect herself is probably killing her. I haven't ruled out infidelity yet, but based on my therapy session, it seems she's much more broken emotionally than I ever thought possible. I visited my lawyer for the first time yesterday, and he suggested we send the hey, I'm representing your H. Can you please call smiley face letter as opposed to serving her with a summons. She still hasn't called, emailed me, so I'm hoping this will spur her into some kind of action. I'm still hopeful, but we have a very long road ahead of us. I have been following the 180 to a T up till now. I just couldn't take it anymore. I do legitimately need to speak to her about financial matters and loose ends. I have no intention whatsoever of blubbering, begging, and rationalizing. However, when we do speak tomorrow, I want to sneak in the following points. Nothing I can say can make you change the way you feel, but I think it'd be healthy if we spoke. I've been working on myself a lot and I realize many of the things I did to hurt you, but I did it to make myself better. Because if we don't work, I don't want to make the same mistakes. I'm not going to beg, but I want you to know I'd like to work on us and get counseling. I know the hardcore 180 here will probably say don't call, and don't answer if she calls you. A few hours ago, I was totally committed to doing that, but my wife doesn't have it in her to initiate this. And if we don't talk now, I don't think there's any more hope. If she's adamant about D, then I got to back up convo, discussing proceeding with the D, advising her that the lawyer's letter is in the mail, and details about completely separating our financial lives. I already have a separate bank account, but whatever. She followed suit a few days later. I should mention that I just dug up cards she wrote me on my birthday and our anniversary, both in July. She wrote beautiful things about us and how even though we'd been on a rocky road, she's hopeful about the future. That was only 5 months ago. Call me crazy, but I'm not letting go of hope yet. I should note that only a few months ago she wrote me heartfelt cards for my B-Day saying even though we'd had a rocky road, she was looking forward to life with me. She also was planning on surprising me with a dog for Christmas. Not exactly behavior a wife in love, lust with another M would do. But then again, I've resolved to call her this weekend because I really need to wrap up some financial matters, and she also has the key to our storage unit where half of my life is right now collecting dust. But whatever, the cell phone account is under her name and I can't get the bill. I've tried. I need the account password. She only has 12 friends on FB. Her email act had nothing but BS ads. Not proof she's innocent, but it's encouraging, I guess. Comment: I think you love your wife and have gotten comfortable with her, and that you don't want to be alone. Staying with her on a day-to-day basis will be easy. Occasionally, you will find that she has lied to you, again, and that her actions have screwed up your life. Again, you will get upset, again, have a big argument with her, again, and then forgive her. Again, you will continue to not sleep with your wife, and she will continue to not actually fulfill your emotional needs. Any money you bring to the table to support this vampire you accidentally married will disappear. You will have a terrible credit rating due to foreclosures and evictions, and you will be miserable and unstable due to being married to a woman who doesn't love you or herself. But you won't be alone, or you can accept that this person is really bad for you. She lies to you about things great and small. She takes your money and, instead of paying the rent, spends it on other things, and you don't know what they are. It's really nice that you forgive her for screwing you over so quick. Maybe with the next woman, you should make her work for forgiveness a little bit. If she, say, causes you to get foreclosed on, call your lawyer up and tell him to quit screwing around, that you want this divorce fast-tracked so that you can start to have a good life with someone who loves you. Be a pain until he gets this done for you, then pay him and thank him for his help. Once you are divorced, find somebody who loves you. You might also consider some individual counseling to figure out why you would want to be married to a life-sucking chick. But that's up to you. I apologize if this sounds harsh, but most of it is your own words being quoted back to you. What do you guys think of these 2 short ones? Is there anything worth saving for? Check out the other recent stories and see you in the next Love TV.